When someone says they love you, but at the same time ignores you, confuses you, or leaves you in a constant state of uncertainty, it's not just a matter of behavior. It's a profound reflection of what's happening in their own inner world and in yours. Carl Jung taught us that everything we experience in our relationships is a manifestation of our own unconscious. It's not a coincidence that certain people appear in our lives, nor that some of them give us love in a fragmented way, leaving us in a state of doubt, waiting, or even suffering. Why can someone who says they love you act at the same time as if you don't matter to them? Why does it seem like one day you're their world and the next they treat you with coldness? This isn't just a matter of volatile emotions. It's a reflection of their own internal conflicts and yours. Jung spoke of the collective unconscious, a deep part of our psyche that we share with all humanity. It's there where archetypes reside, universal patterns that shape our experiences, including our romantic relationships. When someone loves you and at the same time ignores you, it's not just an isolated action, but a symptom of deeper psychological forces at play. It could be that this person is struggling with their own shadow, that hidden part of themselves that contains everything repressed, what they don't want to accept. And often when love comes into the picture, the shadow activates too. Fears, past wounds, unresolved traumas awaken. To love genuinely means to open up, but opening up implies vulnerability, and for many, vulnerability is synonymous with danger. When someone acts with coldness or ignores you despite feeling something for you, it's possible they're facing an internal battle between the desire for connection and the fear of emotional pain. In their mind, love might be associated with loss, abandonment, or suffering. Maybe in their personal history, love was something unstable, something that left when they needed it most. And now, even though they love you, their unconscious whispers that keeping distance is the only way to avoid being hurt again. But here's the key. If you attract people with this pattern, it's not just about them. It's about what you yourself need to see within you. Jung tells us that everything we experience in our relationships is a mirror of our inner world. Ask yourself, why am I holding on to a connection where love is intermittent? What part of me believes I must fight for someone's attention? What past wounds make me tolerate this uncertainty? Love shouldn't be a constant test of patience or a puzzle to solve. When someone truly loves you, love flows without so many obstacles or contradictions. If you're trapped in a dynamic where you feel you must constantly prove your worth, it's time to look inward. Jung spoke of individuation, the process of integrating all parts of our being, both the light and the shadows, to become complete individuals. If someone plays with your emotional stability, if they seek you with intensity today and ignore you tomorrow, maybe the real question isn't why they do it, but why you allow their behavior to dictate your inner peace. Often, the people who ignore us despite loving us are trapped in their own emotional labyrinth, and nothing you do can change them unless they decide to face their own shadow. But here's what's important. You can't save someone who isn't ready to save themselves. When you keep chasing someone who's inconsistent, when you justify their coldness because deep down they love you, what you're really doing is avoiding a deeper truth. True love isn't intermittent, nor does it leave you in constant uncertainty. Jung said that external events are a projection of our inner world. If this situation repeats in your life, maybe it's time to ask yourself, what part of me keeps waiting for validation? What wounds haven't I healed? What fear stops me from letting go of what doesn't do me good? Because in the end, the big question isn't whether that person loves you or not. It's whether you love yourself enough to stop accepting emotional crumbs. When you find yourself trapped in a dynamic where someone gives you half-hearted love, what's really happening is an unconscious game between their fears and yours. Their fear might be commitment, total surrender, the possibility of losing themselves in the relationship. But yours could be something even deeper. The fear of being alone, the fear of not being enough, the fear that if you don't fight for this person, no one else will. Jung teaches us that the shadow isn't just in others, it's in us too. When someone ignores you but you stay there waiting for their love, what's really happening is that there's a part of you that hasn't been recognized, a part that needs attention. Maybe you grew up in an environment where love was conditional, where you had to strive to deserve affection, where you learned that love wasn't given freely but had to be earned. If in your childhood you experienced these kinds of dynamics, it's likely that in your adult life, you repeat these patterns without realizing it, not because you like to suffer, but because your unconscious keeps trying to resolve that original wound. You keep trying to get the love that was once denied to you. And here's the paradox. The more you seek it outside, the further you drift from the only source where you can truly find it within yourself. The reason we tolerate intermittent love is because we've disconnected from our own worth. If you knew with certainty who you are, if you recognized your light, your strength, your essence, you'd never allow someone to treat you like an option. Not because you're proud, but because you'd know that love isn't something to beg for. It's something shared between two complete people, not between one who gives everything and another who only takes when it suits them. Jung spoke of projections, the phenomenon where we attribute to others what we haven't recognized in ourselves. Maybe you believe the other person has the power to make you happy, to complete you, to fill a void. But the truth is, that void was never outside you. It's yours, and only you can heal it. When someone ignores you despite loving you, what they're showing is their own conflict, their struggle between the desire for connection and the fear of what that connection entails. But if you choose to stay in that game, it's because within you there's also a struggle between self-love and the fear of letting go. True love doesn't generate anxiety or leave you in a constant state of doubt. If someone really wants to be in your life, they will be, without you having to force anything. And if they're not, if their presence is intermittent, if one day they seem to give themselves fully and the next they disappear, then the best thing you can do is let go of the fantasy of what could be and accept the reality of what is. Because sometimes the person who's really ignoring us isn't the other. It's ourselves. We ignore ourselves every time we accept less than we deserve. Every time we put our happiness in someone else's hands. Every time we justify the unjustifiable when deep down we know something's not right. Jung said that true transformation happens when we dare to see the truth without filters, without self-deception. And the truth is this: you don't need someone else to confirm your worth. You don't need to wait for someone to decide whether they want to be with you or not. You don't need to stay where love is uncertain, because true love never puts its presence in doubt. The moment you become aware of this, the moment you realize you deserve something deeper, more stable, more authentic, everything changes. Because when you decide to let go, you don't lose anything. On the contrary, you recover the most important thing: yourself. Letting go doesn't mean losing. It means freeing yourself from the burden of holding on to something that's not in harmony with you. When someone loves you but doesn't show it consistently, when their presence is an emotional roller coaster, what's really happening is a clash between their inner world and yours. But why do you insist on staying there? Jung showed us that humans tend to seek what feels familiar, even if it's painful. Often what we interpret as love is nothing more than a repetition of emotional patterns that have followed us since childhood. If you grew up in an environment where affection was unstable, where love came and went without warning, where care depended on others' moods, it's likely that, without realizing it, you've learned that love works that way, that it has to be earned, that you have to wait, that you have to endure. But real love isn't a game of uncertainty. It shouldn't be an emotional roller coaster where one day you're the most important thing and the next you seem invisible. Jung spoke of the principle of individuation, the process by which a person becomes a complete being, capable of loving and sustaining themselves. If someone plays with your emotional stability, it's not your mission to change them, heal them, or convince them that love should be different. You can't teach someone to love if they haven't yet learned to face their own shadow. And here's the hardest part: accepting that it's not your responsibility to make someone else ready for love. When you tolerate coldness, indifference, or inconsistency from someone who says they love you, it's not because you're patient. It's because there's something inside you that still fears letting go. But what do you really fear? Maybe you fear that if you let this person go, there won't be another who truly loves you. Maybe you fear the problem is yours, that somehow you're not enough. Maybe you fear facing loneliness and discovering that being with yourself is a challenge. But Jung teaches us that the shadow isn't something to reject, it's something to integrate. And part of that integration is recognizing that love shouldn't be full of doubts and fears. If you feel you have to convince someone to love you, if you feel you must fight for a place in their life, then what you're facing isn't love. It's a reflection of an internal wound you haven't healed. Mature love doesn't flee when it feels vulnerable. It doesn't hide behind excuses or play with time and others' emotions. If someone loves you but still ignores you, what they're really saying with their actions is that they're not ready, that their inner world is still full of unresolved conflicts. And if you stay there waiting, the only thing you'll achieve is dragging yourself into that same emotional chaos. When someone comes in and out of your life as if your love were something they can turn on and off at will, the question isn't why they do it, it's why you keep allowing it. The great truth few want to face is this: you can't force anyone to love you the way you need to be loved, but you can choose to love yourself enough to walk away from someone who doesn't know how to do it. The only reason this situation hurts you so much is because deep in your being, something tells you you deserve more. That voice, that intuition, is your unconscious speaking to you, showing you it's time to break this vicious cycle. But only you can decide to listen. Because in the end, love isn't a question without an answer or an enigma to solve. Love is simple. When someone wants to be in your life, they are. And when they're not, when their place was never fully theirs, your resistance to letting go of what doesn't do you good is nothing more than a reflection of the internal struggle within you. It's not the person themselves that binds you. It's the story you've built around them, the expectations, the moments of connection, the hope that one day they'll realize your worth. But Jung reminds us that life doesn't work from waiting, it works from internal transformation. If you keep holding on to someone who loves you halfway, who ignores you at times, and then returns as easily as they left, it's time to ask yourself, what part of me still believes this kind of love is enough? Because when someone treats you this way, it's not really them holding you back. It's you who hasn't yet given yourself permission to let go. And letting go doesn't mean hating, holding a grudge, or wishing them harm. Letting go means accepting that the connection isn't aligned with what you really need, and that by clinging to it, you're closing the door to something better. Jung spoke of synchronicity, the idea that when we're in harmony with our being, things start to align effortlessly. But synchronicity only happens when we make space for what truly belongs to us. As long as you keep holding on to what doesn't flow, as long as you keep accepting less than you deserve, you'll be blocking the opportunities that could transform your life. The universe isn't punishing you with this uncertain love. It's not bad luck or a cruel fate. What's happening is that life is showing you the same pattern over and over, so you can finally recognize it, understand it, and transcend it. It's not a coincidence that you keep facing these kinds of relationships. It's not a coincidence that love feels like a guessing game, as if you're always waiting for the other person to decide what to do with you. When someone doesn't choose you clearly and firmly, what they're really saying is that they don't have the capacity to love you the way you need. But more importantly, what you allow from others will reflect what you believe you deserve. The problem isn't that they ignore you. The problem is that you keep allowing it to be part of your life. The problem isn't that the other person is incapable of giving themselves. The problem is that you keep waiting for them to change. And here's the truth few dare to accept. No one changes unless they want to. No love strengthens from uncertainty. No relationship flourishes from constant doubt. When someone wants you, they show it with actions, not with empty promises or intermittent presence. There are no excuses, no confusion, only clarity. Real love doesn't leave you on hold. It doesn't give you crumbs. It doesn't fill you with anxiety. So the final question isn't whether that person loves you or not. The real question is, do you love yourself enough to stop accepting an incomplete love? Because the day you answer yourself honestly, the day you decide you deserve more, that day everything will change. Not because the other person changes, but because you'll no longer be available for what doesn't do you good. That will be the moment when love stops being a mystery and becomes what it always should have been: a clear choice, an energy that flows without obstacles, a space where you can be yourself without fear, without doubts, without waiting. Love shouldn't feel like a puzzle that doesn't fit or a constant effort to decipher someone else's intentions. You shouldn't be waiting for signals, interpreting silences, trying to find in their actions an answer you already know deep down. Because when someone truly loves you, there's no room for confusion. You don't need to ask yourself if you're enough, if you did something wrong, if you should try harder. Authentic love manifests with clarity, with intention, with presence. But when you find yourself trapped in a cycle where love seems to fade and reappear without explanation, what's really happening is a reflection of an unresolved internal struggle, both in the other person and in you. Because it's not just them avoiding something, fearing what they feel, not daring to take the step. There's also something within you allowing this dynamic, something you haven't recognized yet, something you need to confront. Jung spoke of the shadow, that hidden side of our personality where we store everything we reject about ourselves. Maybe in your shadow lies the fear of being alone, the belief that you need to fight for love, the idea that if you insist enough, that person will finally open their eyes and see how valuable you are. But what if, instead of trying to change the other, you decide to change the internal narrative that's kept you in this cycle of waiting? What if, instead of asking why they ignore you, you ask why you keep giving them space in your life? And what if, instead of waiting for an answer from them, you give yourself the answer you need? Jung said that every person who enters our life is a reflection of something we need to learn. If someone ignores you despite loving you, maybe the real lesson isn't in deciphering their emotions, it's in understanding yours. Because every time you accept less than you deserve, you're teaching your unconscious that this is the standard of love you're willing to receive. But the day you decide to change that standard, the day you realize that love isn't something to beg for, but something shared freely and sincerely, that day you'll stop chasing someone who doesn't know what to do with you. That day you'll stop accepting half-hearted loves, late responses, absences of love. That day you'll understand that the love you're really seeking isn't in the other. It's in the relationship you have with yourself. Because when you choose yourself, when you decide you won't settle for less, something within you changes. And when you change, the world responds to that new version of you. The people who aren't ready for authentic love drift away, and those who are aligned with your growth start to appear. Love shouldn't feel like a dilemma or a constant test of your patience. You shouldn't be waiting for a message, a sign, an external validation to feel complete. Because real love doesn't make you doubt. It doesn't play with your mind. It doesn't ignore you only to show up when it's convenient. Real love is a safe place, not a source of anxiety. And the day you realize this will be the day you stop looking in the other for what's always been within you. When you finally understand that love shouldn't be a source of uncertainty, when you realize you don't need to wait for someone to decide whether they want to be in your life or not, you recover something invaluable, your personal power. And it's in that moment when everything changes, not because the other person magically transforms into what you always hoped, but because you're no longer willing to accept less than you truly deserve. Jung taught us that life is a reflection of our inner world. If you keep attracting relationships where love is intermittent, where you have to prove your worth, or where you feel ignored, it's not because that's your destiny. It's because there's something within you that still needs healing. But when you dare to look inward, when you face those wounds and decide you deserve a deeper, authentic, free love, the dynamics start to shift. Letting go isn't losing. Letting go is making space for what's truly aligned with you. It's trusting that true love won't make you wait, won't make you feel small, won't make you doubt yourself. When you give yourself the respect you expect from others, you start to attract relationships where love is reciprocal, where there are no power games, where being yourself is enough. So today, I want to leave you with a question that can change everything. Do you love yourself enough to stop accepting less than you deserve? If this message resonated with you, if you feel it's touched something inside you, I invite you to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe it's a friend, a family member, or even someone going through this same situation. Because the truth is, we've all been there at some point, waiting for someone who doesn't choose us with the same certainty we choose them. Leave your comment below and tell me, what part of this message impacted you the most? Have you lived a similar experience? What was it that finally made you wake up and realize your true worth? I want to read your story, because what you share doesn't just help you, it can be the light for someone else who needs to hear these words today. I also want to invite you to be part of this community. Subscribe if you haven't already and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos. Every time you comment, share, or interact, you're helping this message reach more people. To those who right now might be trapped in a love that makes them doubt themselves. Life is too short to live waiting for the love of someone who doesn't know how to give it. Today is the moment to choose yourself, to put yourself first, to let go of what doesn't add to you, and to open yourself to what will truly make you grow. Because when you value yourself, when you decide that your self-love is the foundation of everything, the universe responds in ways you never imagined. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for being part of this space of transformation. See you in the next video. Remember, love starts with you.